If you are a teacher considering starting your own business, but you aren't sure what you can do, Zelda's story is going to inspire you. She shows you how to craft a business catered to your sweet spot so that you can live in alignment with your true self, even if you don't have it all figured out. She went from teaching to be financially independent for 4 decades as a business owner. She's authored 3 books and she's run 4 different types of business, all in completely different industries. She's going to share her wisdom of her success. So enjoy and be inspired. You are a woman of many trades. I keep hearing every time I talk to you, some new venture that you have tried. I was like, what? You did that too? So tell me, what were you doing as a teacher? What kind of teacher? Where were you? How long? All that kind of stuff.
So let me tell you this first. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. I
Mhm.
did not know about working for another organization or corporation or anything because
Mhm.
that was never in my life growing up. My family were entrepreneurs, my mom and dad. So that's where my background was. I went to college, didn't know what to major in. And after my 4th year, my parents said, you better find a major. So I thought, okay, teaching. I was a female. What do? You teach.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, fine, I'll do that because I needed to get out of school. So I graduated and got my education degree, elementary ed, and I was going to save the world, you know?
Yep.
It's
Oh, yeah.
like most teachers, I'm going to save the world. And then reality hit. They put me in a very rough school, and I was only going to be teaching reading. And I thought, gosh, this is not fun. I'm not enjoying this. So I transferred after that year and I moved to Houston, Texas. And I taught for the remainder of 1 year in a fifth grade rough school again. And it was very rough. I mean,
Mhm.
it was not a good experience. So they moved me the next year to a nice school and a good area. But I learned very quickly this just was not the career for me. I was enclosed in these 4 walls with all these children, and children don't all learn at the same pace. So you
Mhm.
might have taught them this, and this Johnny over here didn't understand it, and Mary over here doesn't understand anything. And so you're really teaching one on one. And I mean, the
Yeah.
kids in this class were wonderful children. Their parents were wonderful, but I was not a wonderful teacher. And I
Mhm.
recognized that. And I
Mhm.
knew instantly I had to get out of this profession. So I told my parents, this is not for me. And they said to me, this was their advice and their words exactly: Zelda, you can do anything in this world that you want to do as long as you can support yourself because we're not paying anymore. My safety net had been pulled out. So I said, that's fine. And you know what, Courts? I never worked for anybody else ever. Well, I should
Wow.
not say never again, only in a brief period. This is what you
Mhm.
do because that's what it is when you're teaching school. You're teaching that method.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and as a teacher, you're stuck in that too. Like, you have so many constraints. And that is also one of the things that frustrated me, that I had felt like I had no agency. Like, I was so mandated by everything that I had to do that
Mhm.
I didn't really have the freedom to teach even the way that I wanted to.
No, you don't have the freedom to do that. And it just wasn't for me. And now I'm out and about, and that's my world.
Hmm.
Don't box me into a little cubicle from, 7 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon or something like that. I need to be out and about and have my freedom. And it was a learning experience. I learned very quickly that wasn't for me. And I've never had to work for anybody else again.
So once you decided, that was after 3 years in,
I
was
probably
that
worked
four?
two and a half, two and a half.
Okay. So you could just feel that that wasn't the right place for you. Then you knew you had to do something else. Did you know what you wanted? That we're going to start a business immediately then while you were teaching, or did you quit and then, like, I've got to find something? What happened there?
Well, after I quit, I went home for Thanksgiving. A fellow in my mother's kitchen, they were talking about business. My mom had owned her little business, which wasn't that little. It was a Hallmark card and gift shops.
Mm,
And so I was raised in that, and a wedding planner. She was a wedding planner before there was any such industry.
wow.
My dad owned a wholesale produce distribution. My mom always did all the books
Hmm.
for all the companies. So when I quit, I came home for Thanksgiving, and there was a fellow there talking to my mom about whatever she was doing. And on the spot, I just joined the conversation, and he offered me a job. He offered me a job working in recruiting, because saw me as a salesperson.
Mhm.
So I moved back home and started doing that. And I knew instantly that wasn't for me either.
Mhm.
Pounding the pavements, looking for people who were looking for jobs, that wasn't for me either. And my mom got sick. She passed away. My sister and I either closed or sold the Hallmark card shops. And it wasn't until I became a housewife, I got married and all that, and I became just a stay-at-home mom until my youngest son was 3. When he was 3, I said, I got to get out of this house. I need some adult conversation. I had a 5 and a 3-year-old. I said, no. I knew about wedding planning
Mm.
because of my mom. So I said, I'm going to be a wedding planner. So I just went out and bought some business cards and some stationery and started. It was the industry was now there was a small industry in this now
Mm.
and event planning. And so I did that, but I decided pretty soon that weddings weren't for me because the brides all had champagne taste and Coca-Cola budget. But I didn't drop it. I just got into event planning and I gradually got decorations and props and stored them in my garage. And then I ended up having to store them in a warehouse and renting a warehouse. So that grew. And I had that for 10 years.
Mhm.
Sold that business to a really large AV and lighting company. I was very involved in the Chamber of Commerce.
Mm.
And I was chairman of their events or something like this was way back when, but I was way up there in the Chamber of Commerce. And I was president of Women Business Owners in 95. I was president of the Jacksonville Women's Network. And my dad said to me when I sold the event company, you should come and work with us. Now, this was a 100-year-old family-owned business started by my grandfather. Then my
Mm.
dad took it over and my brothers were there. I was like, okay, I don't have anything else to do. I'll go there for 2
'Cause this was
years.
after you'd sold the events
Mhm.
thing. Okay.
I was hanging out doing nothing. And I said, okay, I'll do it for 2 years. I ended up staying for 10. Within 2 years, I became the president. We got women owned status. We went after more contracts. We worked for the school system, selling wholesale produce to them. It was tomatoes, potatoes, lettuce, onions, fruits, vegetables, all that. We were the distributor. And we got hit by a tornado in '04. We took a direct hit and that
Wow.
crushed my father. He basically checked out after that point. He was in his late 80s. He's like, I'm done.
But I don't need to deal with this anymore. Mhm.
My brother was like, I'm done. But I was the president and they needed my signature. And I said, I have kids to support. At this time, my husband had passed away. I needed to support my family. I didn't know what else I was going to do. So I said, we're going to build this company up and then we'll sell it. And
Mhm.
that's really what we did. We built it up. We got more clients. It was like fun. It was our competitors helped us. Who
Wow.
knows if their competition would help them? They helped us
Mm.
survive and we
Wow.
thrived. And so after 10 years in that, we built it back up again and we sold that company. Then I didn't know what to do again. And then I thought, hmm. Now my sister came in and she said, well, you know a lot of people. You've been involved with everything,
Mhm.
all these groups, all these networking groups. You need to get your real estate license. And that's what I got my real estate license and my CAM license, which is your community association. You know, the HOA person who drives
Oh,
around and, does all, they
so
manage the
that's a
HOA.
license?
Oh, yeah.
I
They're
didn't
state
even okay.
licenses. Yes. So I didn't enjoy the CAM, but I did it for a couple years just to understand it and all that.
Mhm.
And then I kept my real estate license and I've been at it for 17 years now. So I didn't get rid of that one in 10. But then I said, now what am I going to do? I'm older now and I don't want to be selling houses for the rest of my life, but I'm not the type to sit at home and
That's
sit in
right.
a rocking chair.
All that
So
energy, you
I
gotta do something with it.
got to do something. So, in addition to the real estate, which I will continue to do, I opened up what's called Up Until Now, Your Next Chapter, because I knew always said, I should be doing better than I am now.
Mm.
And I just don't have all the tools similar to what you do, but not quite the
Yeah,
same. So, I teach skills in how to grow your business, not how to start a business.
right.
Most of the people in my networking group are seasoned entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
And so I speak to different organizations. I wrote my first course and my last course it's called the Ultimate Networking Playbook. So I talk about networking online and in-person networking.
Mhm.
And so I'm growing that membership. And I have the podcast that goes hand in hand with it, where I interview experts in a very niche specific market to talk to the people who are in the alliance, who are in this networking group, which is called the Alliance. So that's up to speed of everything that
Yeah.
I have done and am doing. And, you
You
know,
are, I think, one of those classic serial entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
Your story, I think, shows a lot about how you don't have to have it all planned out ahead of time, that you're taking advantage of opportunities and where it lands, and you're always having to reevaluate too, right? Like, where am I right now? What's the market like? And what's good for me in my life and where I am.
Yes, and that is that work-life
Mm,
balance. It's because now I'm so much older and I am almost at retirement. And I think, okay, what am I going to do when I retire? What does that look like? I'm
mhm.
actually trying to find a hobby.
I can't believe you have time for one.
I don't. I absolutely do not have time for one. But when I wrote that course that I said was my first and last, because it is, that was excruciating. I have a business strategist that helps me, and she always has me thinking bigger. And so when I came up with the idea, or she actually came up with the idea, I could write this course because I knew so much about this topic, that I said, okay, but it was just so much technology to
Yes.
overcome. It's like just when you learn this one, a new one comes up. I call Chat GPT on its training wheels, because that's where you learn about AI. But there's so
Mhm.
many others and they do so much more. That's the training wheels. That's where I teach everybody to start with that when you want to learn about AI, artificial intelligence. I teach them
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I've done a lot. I'm going to continue to do a lot until the good Lord tells me you're
Right.
done.
Just looking what's the next step each time,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well,
Wow.
you've talked a little bit about it, but can you think of any particular challenges or rewards of business ownership?
I told you about the challenges I have. It's the technology piece, because just when you learn one, there's something else.
Mhm.
And there's also in real estate, I have to deal with a lot of different people
Mhm.
with the different personalities. I deal with people who are usually they're happy, but it's a stressful time when you're buying a house. Sometimes I work
Mhm.
with divorced couples, and sometimes they're very happily work well together, and other times they're at each other's throat. One wants to sell and the other doesn't.
Mm.
I'm the person in the middle who has to make everything all nice. So, you're dealing with these different personality types. It's balancing the different people and their
Mhm.
personalities and making sure that it's a win-win for everybody. But the best part is when I have a client with whatever industry I'm working in, they do become my friends. I mean, I
Mhm.
don't just, it's not, okay, that transaction was great. Next. I'm
Right.
not like that. I'm like, okay, hey, look, I'm having a party next week. Will you come? And, or look, let's go to dinner. Let's go to lunch. And, oh, it's your children's birthday. So I absolutely don't drop the ball there. And that's kind of what I'm known for in business is I'm kind of like a dog with a bone. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I fight hard for my clients.
Mm.
I want everybody to be happy and it's for everybody at the end. But at the end of the day, this is my client who I'm representing and I will represent you hard. You think I was the attorney or something? It's like I fight hard for my clients to get what they want and need.
But it sounds like you really enjoy the relationship building, and that's also why you did your course, which is really about the relationships that you need to
Yeah.
build and maintain, and the practical ways that you can do that. And
In
so
fact,
for
it was
you, that's really rewarding as well, having all those relationships.
absolutely. It was like out of
Mhm.
the blue the other day. I opened up an email and somebody's asked me to come and speak to their organization of these business owners and entrepreneurs. And I was just flabbergasted. It was like, oh my God, this is so awesome. So I'm going to be talking all about all these different things.
Yeah, that's great that you're willing to share your knowledge and help people with that. So, what else would you say are some of the rewards? Like, why do you stick with it? And, because obviously it can be very challenging and scary at sometimes, like the tornado hits and, you sold one, but obviously you keep coming back to it. So, what do you find so rewarding about business ownership?
The freedom of it.
Mm.
I don't have to punch a clock. I get up in the morning, I have a coffee on my patio and overlook the water and see some birds flying. I don't have to go in and, oh gosh, I got to get up at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning and get dressed and go and punch a clock and go do what the boss is telling me needs to be done. And they never want to hear you either. They just want you to be a yes man. Maybe
Hmm.
not all of them, maybe not
Right.
all, but it's just, that's just not for me. And so to me, the freedom I have is enormous. I mean, look, I look at my home, it's paid for. Everything is paid for. It's a
Mm.
great feeling to know that
Hmm.
you accomplished this. I didn't need
Right.
a husband to help me, or would have been nice, but I didn't have one. I was like, I did this myself. I'm proud of what I've accomplished in my life. And there's
Yeah.
more to come,
Yeah.
there's more.
When you have that sense of accomplishment that you've achieve something, then that fuels you for more. I think the fact that you were able to sell the one business, you had that success from your first one, then that fueled you to go on with, your father's business and then your real
Right.
estate and then the
I
next one.
sold the Hallmark card shops, and we did those owner financing, which was good. So, hey, we
Hmm.
made money. Selling businesses is very lucrative. So we sold that one, sold Fragrance Produce, which was the produce company, sold my event company. I'm not going to sell the real estate. And in that business, I had my son become the broker. And so we
Mm.
work it together, and that will be something for him to take on one day.
Well, and that's another advantage too, being able to include family. Like you had
Mhm,
your family, your parents were including you. Now you've included your
mhm.
son. It's a way to
Yeah,
kind of build generational wealth there.
absolutely. I mean, I don't know what else I would do. I mean, have no idea what I would
Well, it's
do.
become
So,
your life. I mean, and that's the
yeah.
thing. It's an entrepreneurial mindset then, right? Well,
Mhm,
considering that the business world is very different than what teachers go through. And often when teachers go through their training, they're not thinking they're ever going to do anything else. They think that's all it's going to be.
mhm.
So, what kind of recommendations would you have for a teacher who is considering leaving and pursuing business ownership?
Well, I would say that most people, when they're of that background, are probably young. And so you're naive. And so you just jump in, or at least that's what I did. And I think that's what we just jump in. And that's a good thing.
Mm,
Not knowing is a good thing, because now when I start a new business, there's a lot of thought that goes into it because I know what's involved with it. And I
mm.
go, oh, I'm just so
And
tired. I
it
don't want to do
stops
all
you
that.
from taking action.
So
Mm,
I say go for it, because if you don't go for it, if you keep doing the same thing, that's what you're going to be doing. But explore it. Maybe find a side gig. I know a lot of people who have these side hustles,
mhm.
and start there. And if you don't enjoy it, don't do it. I have a lot of family members, they're all entrepreneurs, everyone. But when they try something different, if it works and people are buying it, they keep pursuing it. If they don't, then they go, okay, let me tweak this a little bit. So
Mhm.
you might have to tweak what that thing is, but I say start a little side hustle of the thing that you enjoy. You have to like what you're doing.
Mm.
You have to like it. If you don't like it, don't do it, because you're never going to get anywhere. And then just enjoy it, and don't worry about the money. The money will come. Just do what you love to do.
I like that. Well, do you have any thoughts or recommendations or something you want to share with teachers
No.
thinking of
So
entrepreneurships?
the only other thing I can say is, if they had the time, but I don't know how a teacher would have the time, go to a chamber of commerce like the
Mm,
Jacksonville Women's Business Center. Talk to people who are entrepreneurs and maybe in the industry that you're considering. Get as much
mm.
information as you can on it, and then see if there's a way that you can start it as a side hustle, small, and grow from there.
I like that recommendation of talking to current business owners and just kind of gathering that information because you're going
Mhm.
to hear a lot of things you might not have thought of. And like you said,
Yeah.
of course, it could stop you too, but there is so much that you don't know, and you don't know because you don't know.
And that's something I say all the
Hmm.
time at the Alliance. You don't know what you don't know. And
Hmm.
so there you go. And maybe it's enough, like you said, to stop you, but maybe it's not. And it maybe some people, they like that challenge, and they go, well, I'll be darned. If they said I can't do that, I'm going to show them that I can.
That's true.
Some
And
people,
that's it. There's different personalities. You're right.
and there's no right or wrong. You just do it. Just
Mhm.
go for it.
And that's one thing I do like about business ownership is that you can really craft it to reflect your strengths and your interest
Mhm.
and find it
And there,
something joyful for
and if
you.
it's not your strength and you've started a business, you go find somebody that it is their strength,
Mm.
and you bring them in, because you're not going to be perfect, and nothing's ever perfect.
And
But
you can't
bring
do
in,
everything.
no, bring them
Yeah.
in, bring in
Yeah.
people as early as you can.
Mm.
Hire slow, fire fast.
That is good. Very good advice. Yes. You probably learned that one the hard way, huh?
I sure have. I kept them way too long because they're my friend.
You want to
Whatever.
tell us about your books that you have in the background?
Oh, okay. Well, these are two of three. This is the first book I wrote, called The Art of Bouncing Back. I wrote this one when I was recovering from the tornado and we were rebuilding.
Mm.
And so it's a lot of little stories, short stories about people who came from all kinds of backgrounds, and it didn't define who they are. Lots of famous people in
Mm.
here, and lots of local people are in here that had to overcome challenges. So that's what this is. It's about following actions, your attitude, accepting change and communicating, trusting your instinct, things like that, self-invest. So that's what this book is about. And this
And
was
yeah, your
actually,
podcast was on resiliency, right?
yes. Actually, about 3 months ago, I had a fellow on, a former NFL player. His name is Marcus Ogden, and he's a former NFL. So
Yeah.
he invested in some bad stuff. He went broke. He was bankrupt, and then he spoke about his resiliency. When organizations hire me, they hire me usually to speak on resiliency and overcoming your challenges, or they want me to talk about how to network to bring in revenue. So
Okay.
that's what this
That's
book is.
that sounds
And
good.
this book I wrote with my son, and this is called
Oh,
14 Days to Sold. Although in today's world, it takes sometimes a little bit more than 14 days, but it gives you 7 steps to follow. And if you follow these, you will get your home sold much quicker and for top dollar. And then the third one is one that goes along with the course. It's called The Ultimate Networking Playbook. And it's all about how to network smart, strategically, online and in person, to bring in more business.
that sounds very useful. So this is the most recent book, I take it.
Yes.
If people want to follow you, where should they go?
Well, I have a couple of websites, zeldaspeaking.com, or if you want real estate, it's gozelda.com.
Well, Zelda, thank you for speaking to me.
Well, thank you, Courts, for having me. It was my pleasure to help in any way I can.
And I love hearing all these different things because, like, every time I've talked to you, I hear these little bits and pieces. So now I got the whole story. I love it. You're inspirational, Zelda. I find Zelda's story really inspirational. I hope you did too. And I had 3 key takeaways that really meant a lot to me. Number 1 was that Zelda was able to look at each season of her life and see the opportunities that laid before her and go with that. She didn't have it all planned out, and that's okay. So at some point she was at home with her children, another was real estate, another was, her executive coaching and the event planning. Each season of her life brought different things. She stayed open to those opportunities and didn't feel that she had to have everything planned out. The second lesson I get from her story is the power of connections. She really worked hard to build those connections. Even her first one was basically friends of her family that had worked with her parents' business. And then later on, she had built those connections by being very involved in local business organizations and even with her competitors, helping her to stay in business. And this is, I think, so key that we often forget. We think we can do everything by ourselves, or we should be doing everything by ourselves, but we really rely on our networks and keeping those connections, keeping the customers happy, also relating with other business owners. And I think Zelda's story really shows that. The third thing is that you don't have to have it all figured out, right? She didn't have her whole life figured out. She didn't necessarily know how to do everything. Obviously, with getting into 4 different kinds of businesses, you couldn't know it all. Obviously, with getting into 4 different kinds of businesses, you couldn't know it all. And she says that, sometimes it's better when you don't know it all because then you're willing to try. And that's the most important thing, that you're just getting out there and trying, and that willingness to learn. And I think that's one of the things that's so exciting about entrepreneurship is that we are constantly having this opportunity to learn. And as human beings, we thrive when we learn. So I hope you got out as much of this story of Zelda and all that inspiration as I did. And make sure to check out the notes so that you can find ways to connect with Zelda. I've got her 3 books written in there as well, her webpage. And if you are interested in learning or getting more help on transitioning from a teacher to business, please make sure you check up on my website too and subscribe to my newsletter so that you can find out when I have my next opening for a boot camp or a course. Thanks so much for watching.